And welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the Hit Show. Along with Brian Kelly, I'm Phil McGrady, and we are getting a slow start this year, to say the least. We are
like the Red Sox.
As the Red Sox are definitely getting a slow start. We're doing it without spring training. At least those
That's
guys
right.
had a little spring
Jump
training.
right out there.
And they've been at it for
Yeah.
a while. But anyway, this is the first time that we're doing the show in high definition, so might look a little bit different. Graphics a little bit different.
A little bit clearer.
Yeah, a little clearer. Brian might look a little more handsome. I look probably a little bit older. But anyway, the Red Sox trying to find their way through the 2015 season. They are currently, they've won 2 in a row, and they're still, I believe they're currently 6 games under 500 at the moment.
Yeah. 5?
Maybe 5 after today.
Right.
They're doing a day-night doubleheader as the weather's been not so great here in the Northeast area. But anyway,
Big win to start the double dip.
Yes, yeah. So that was a big win against a surprisingly good team. The Minnesota Twins, certainly a team that has been in recent years kind of the doormat in the American League Central. Surprisingly in first place in that division. Early on, of course, you still have your Detroits. A lot of people picking the Cleveland Indian as kind of one of this year's darling picks. That hasn't worked out so much.
Kansas City, defending American League
Kansas
champions.
City, no, a team that went to the World Series last year. A lot of people saying that, it was a fluke or whatever. They just kind of caught people by surprise. But they're kind of proving right now, definitely a team that is, you got to say, they seem like they're a solid team.
They do. I mean, they got a lot of power arms in that bullpen. Wade Davis, Greg Holland. They got the young kid in the rotation, Ventura. And they just got a lot of just really solid players in that lineup. Hosmer, Moustakas, Alex Gordon, Lorenzo Cain has had a good start to the year.
Yeah, he's a guy who's, he's been kind of hot and cold, but definitely hot right now.
Well, they've been a team that's been bad for so long, so they've had a ton of high draft picks, and now they're kind of bearing fruit. Moustakas has been up for a few years now, has struggled. This is the first year he's kind of really coming into his own. Same thing with Hosmer, and Gordon was a third baseman for a little while, had a really hard time there, and he's become one of the best left fielders in the game now. So they have a pretty solid team. They're the definition of a team,
right?
And a team that Game 7 of the World Series,
take it all the way.
Potentially had a chance to tie the game. Yeah.
It almost came down to the final play. But getting back to the Red Sox, they certainly have struggled this year to start off this 2015 season anyway. And last year they finished in dead last place. It does not look good. They go out and get actually one of your favorite players, I think, in all of baseball, in Hanley Ramirez. And then they bring in Pablo Sandoval from the San Francisco Giants.
A move that I did not like.
A guy that could doesn't really hit for power. Does have a good average, but just on the surface, not addressing the pitching and bringing in a couple of sluggers, I guess.
Yeah, I think they figured, as they talked about in the offseason, we don't have an ace. We have five number one stars or whatever they said, which is ridiculous. But they said, we'll throw out, 5 number 3s or 4s or whatever they are. Masterson was coming off a bad year last year. They were hoping that he would rebound. Miley's always been a decent number 3, 4 starter in the National League. Buchholz has the potential to be a 1 or 2, but he's always, goes through those rough stretches as we've seen already. And now he's turned it around.
Certainly his last 2 outings.
Porcello, they looked at as a guy who was just coming into his own. Had some good seasons with Detroit. Had probably his best year last year, and they gave him a big extension, which was a little early to do.
It was, and
now he's struggling.
I think it's the age thing. They just like pitchers under a certain age. They have a formula, the Red Sox do. And you remember that Porcello ultimately was involved in that
Cespedes trade.
The Cespedes trade, right?
So in essence, they traded John Lester for Porcello because they got Cespedes in the Lester deal, had him for half the year last year, and then they shipped him off to Detroit for Porcello, which I thought was a little strange. I would have thought that Cespedes would have had more value than that.
Yeah, and it seemed that way because he was pretty much, the Oakland Athletics, who have been perennial contender last few years. And once that power number has dropped in the lineup, the Oakland A's have kind of just fell right to the bottom of the division. You remember last year they bring over Lester to kind of get them through the stretch. They barely hang on. A gigantic collapse for Oakland. They get knocked out by Kansas City in that one-game playoff. And their lineup has just not been the same without Cespedes in it.
Well, let me ask you this. Would you rather have Cespedes in left field and Hanley at third, and then have one of the young kids in the rotation. Or they could have started the year with Eduardo, our new guy here. Yeah. What'd you call him? Edrod?
Edrod. I think the early line is already out on Edrod.
Yeah.
And we got some footage of him going the other night.
Or gone out and got another, veteran off the dumpster, or whatever. They could have done that as well, rather than go to get someone like Porcello, who is a guy who's never really had a big strikeout rate. Right. Doesn't have a tremendous power arsenal.
We're seeing Edrod. I mean, I'm sure someone has already beat me to the punch on the Edrod.
Yeah.
Anything named Rodriguez is something Rod.
Right.
Lightning Rod. But left-handed pitcher coming in. Tremendous game against Minnesota today. Really just giving up the 2 hits.
And they have 2 more of them in Pawtucket, and Brian Johnson and Henry Owens. A year or 2 ago, Henry Owens was supposed to be the next ace, and now he's gotten bypassed by Rodriguez and Johnson apparently. But why couldn't they have thrown those guys out there? There certainly can't be any worse than Masterson's been, or Miley's been up and down. Joe Kelly's been awful.
Joe Kelly's been a disaster, I think, from as soon as he's...
Joe Kelly's actually a guy that I think could be good in the bullpen.
Yeah.
Yeah, he could be good in the bullpen.
Yeah. Because, I mean, he does have the velocity. He does have, he can hit 90.
Yeah.
Just give him that inning and a half, possibly.
Maybe he's someone that you could, set up to become a closer down the road.
Right. Yui Hara is, I mean, he's... How long can this guy go on for?
Well, we saw it the other night, too.
Yeah. It was, it's... Time's running out. And he's 40 now, I believe, right?
I think I think he may even be 41, yeah.
Yeah, and of course, I was just going to say Big Papi, talking about people who lie about their age. This guy's been 39 for the last 4 seasons, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But again, they don't really, coming out of the Dominican, I'm not sure they're big on ages or
well, I mean, he's kept it going with the productivity for I think a lot longer than anyone expected. If you remember, I think
he was almost done
back in 08, 09, 2 years in a row. It looked like he was finished, and that was 6-7 years ago at this point.
Amazing.
And then he's had some of his best seasons since then, the last few years. So the fact that he kind of turned it around is strange, but good, I guess.
Or as Michael Felger will say on the show, he's been working out quite a bit.
Yeah. But as Papi said just yesterday, everyone comes to the end of the line at some point. But the scary thing is a guy who's always had the confidence that he's had, and has always battled back against any adversity or anyone saying that he was done. Now, if he's kind of giving into Father Time, it's a bad sign.
Right. Yeah. He's currently hitting 224. Yeah.
And they took him out of the lineup for a couple days to try and get his head straight, and it doesn't seem like it's really worked.
I don't know if you noticed this. There's like some other games apparently going on where he's looking at his batting stance and photographs in the dugout. Nesson makes a point to show him wandering around, talking to everyone except the hitting coach.
Pedroia has solved Napoli and Hanley's problems, right? So. Is he not working with Big Papi as well?
I'm not sure how the inner politics of that team works, but the Red Sox canned their pitching coach early and often, which was a good thing.
Do you remember who that was anymore?
I don't, but if you give me 3 names, I'd tell you it was
Juan Nieves.
Juan Nieves is correct. You win the prize. But I mean, the thing is, in John Farrell, it comes from a pitching coaching background. So,
well, now they're talking about maybe Chili Davis, who's their hitting coach, is on the hot seat too.
Right. Yeah. Because the Red Sox had
Chili Davis, who was a great hitter.
Oh, absolutely, in his career, absolutely. With San Francisco and a bunch of
Minnesota.
At least those 2 teams anyway. But
Angels.
The Angels before that. Yeah. But the Red Sox have an absolutely horrific month of May. You knew the pitching was going to be suspect. You think you at least could say, are they going to out-hit? Hanley looked great right off the bat coming out in April.
10 home runs in April.
Yeah, and then his first home
run
in May
for the league
was,
lead.
I think, the last week in May, the last day in May.
And then I think he hit 2 in a row last week, or 2 games in a row. But
the thing is,
it's a disaster in left field, though. I mean, he's worse than I think anyone could have ever predicted. And a guy who played shortstop for as long as he did, you'd think he'd be able to handle left field. I know it can be challenging for certain people with the Green Monster and Fenway, but. He actually has a negative WAR, which is pretty pathetic.
I saw that stat the other day.
For a guy who's probably your best offensive player.
You almost could put like a cardboard cutout there, and that would be competitive.
He'd be perfect for your next DH, but what do? Do you bench Big Papi, more often than not, or I don't know.
You know,
they certainly have plenty of outfielders.
Yeah, there's no question about that. But
and they just picked up another one today.
Who'd they bring up somebody? Or
no, they traded for Diaz from Baltimore.
I did not see that.
Yeah.
But well, more the merrier. So are they going to move someone at this point? You don't know.
Yes.
Let's talk about Napoli at first base, where Napoli had the sleep apnea.
Right.
I mean, so bad to the point where he was, the portions of his sleeping, he would stop breathing. Surgically had his jaw broken.
Yeah.
Guy loses like about 20, 30 pounds in the offseason. That's talk about a tough.
His face looks different now too.
It does, and even his beard cannot be as fluffy as the bobblehead that people got
at
the place the other day at Fenway. But he's been the power numbers are but the batting average is, you're not even at 200.
Wow,
so.
I mean. Well, he is now, but until about 2 or 3 weeks ago, he was just absolutely brutal.
Yep.
He's tried to make up for lost time the last couple of weeks and went on a little bit of a home run tear there, but
had a big one today.
Yeah, but to me he's a guy that you need to move on from at this point.
Right.
If for no other reason than clear a spot for Hanley to come into the infield. And then put someone who's competent out in the outfield.
Right.
You have plenty of options.
Yeah, right.
You got Castillo, Betts. You got Bradley down in Pawtucket. You got Nava. Now you got Diaza. You got Alan Craig down in Pawtucket right now.
Right. Yeah, Alan Craig I don't think is going to be coming back to the big mothership anytime soon. Very disappointing.
But what I would do, honestly, this is what I would do. I would put Jackie Bradley Jr. in center field. Bat the guy ninth. Who cares? He is one of the best defensive center fielders in all of baseball. When they've had him up a couple times this year and they've played him in right field, to me it's a waste. And he didn't even play that great out there because he's not used to it. Put him in center field. Put Mookie back in right field, which is where he played most of the year last year. You put Castillo in left field. It's a great defensive outfield, and they are, between Rusney and Betts, you should have some pretty solid offense as well. That would solve a lot of your problems. Napoli's gone. You have to hope that Hanley could be competent at first base. I would even throw Poppy out there once in a while. I mean,
throw him at first base.
Yeah, I mean
he's actually
he's
played,
not that bad.
Yeah,
at
they
first
bring him
base.
in World Series. They make it seem like they go, oh God, no, everything's going to be an error at first base, and it has not been the case.
Nope. And then you improve your defense quite a bit.
Right.
Which with this pitching staff would be a great thing.
Yeah, it's tough. Like when you figured that this team would score runs, you knew the ERAs were going to be high. It is encouraging.
The offense has sputtered too.
Yeah, well, that's
the offense started struggling when Hanley ran into the wall in left field and hurt his shoulder. If you remember correctly.
I remember that.
Poppy struggled. Napoli struggled. Pedroia started off hot. And we've been talking about him the last couple of years. Yeah. Started off hot, but now he's kind of back into this kind of mediocre.
There's something about watching how he swings the bat. And it was, for me, it was always been like just unbelievable to see how a guy that size could get a bat around that quickly. Yeah. And I don't know if he needs to go down a bat size or, I mean, there's something wrong with his mechanics, it seems like, or maybe he just has lost a step on the quickness on the swing.
Well, he had that, wrist injury last year, and early in the season, he certainly looked like he had recovered from it. So, I don't know what it is. I mean, honestly, I think the guy would be a great leadoff hitter. And then we've seen him hit there a little bit more recently, right?
Yeah,
so
this week,
hit the guy leadoff and have him do what he does best. Get on base. Get on base, be a spark plug at the top of that order. For him to hit, closer to the middle of the lineup and think that he's a run producer, not a run producer.
Yeah. His roles change, and I don't know if it's just the the manager being stubborn, and then we talked about like getting that defensive core. It's not that Victorino, when healthy, which that's, he's not healthy.
Yeah. He's done too.
Yeah. And are they playing these players just because of the salaries? I mean, does Farrell just seem so slow in making these decisions, or does he? I mean, does he feel the heat? Is there someone over his shoulder? Is there a secret?
He's got to be on the hot seat at this point. He's got to be at least getting close to the hot seat, and I think Sherrington is as well. There's no doubt about that. At least in my mind, he should be.
Right.
Think about all the money that they've spent on some of these guys that have just not produced. And they kind of caught lightning in a bottle 2 years ago, which was kind of a patchwork season where they were like, they're coming off a last place here with Bobby V. They're like, let's bring on some veterans and at least make the team competent again. The Victorinos and Napolis and guys like that. They caught lightning in a bottle.
They all got hot at the same time.
They all got hot at the same time, and they just they were a team. There was not a lot of egos there, and everyone was there as a kind of a reclamation project, and everything just happened to work out at the same time. But then you go and you finish in last place after that, and now they go out and spend some money this year, and now we're back to this.
Struggling again. And again, you talk about the 5 aces.
They just completely mismanaged the Leicester negotiations so badly in the offseason.
Well, they had the chance.
They're so morally opposed to bringing, signing big deals to pitchers that are over 30.
Yeah.
But John Lester is a horse. Like, that guy has never had injury problems in his entire career. He's a big guy. He's not like a flamethrower. He throws hard, but he's not a guy that you would think would have arm trouble. He's a lefty, and, he's a warrior. He's a guy that has succeeded in a difficult market in Boston.
Sure.
And the guy wanted to be here.
I know. Yeah.
Give him a 4-year deal, overpay for him like they were overpaying for everyone else, the last few seasons. And then you got an ace, and kind of everyone falls into place after that. Then Buchholz doesn't have the burden of having to be the guy, right? And he falls
crumbles.
in as
he crumbles
number 2.
Under that pressure.
He does. He crumbles under that pressure. I think he could be a good number 2. Lester's your leader, and then you could make that Porcello deal. Now Porcello's a good 3, with promise moving forward, and then you can sprinkle in a guy like a Miley, or bring up Rodriguez or something like that.
Yeah. And then the rest of that is you throw a couple dots, maybe you get a bullseye.
All this talk about Cole Hamels, what is Cole Hamels? 2 years younger than Lester? He's got just as big of a contract. He's never pitched in the American League, and you have to give up a bunch of prospects for him. What are they thinking?
Yeah.
Now their hand might be forced to just be relevant and go do something like that. But why couldn't you have gotten Lester? All it would have cost you was money. Think about all the money that they spent on Sandoval. They didn't need to do that. Yeah. They could have signed Lester and not signed Sandoval.
Yeah, it's I don't know. They haven't really thought this through, and you think, oh no, people will come, people will buy the the panda hats and the whole. They think about marketing and they think about.
They do, and the funny thing is, right? So then they have the vote for which Red Sox do you want to see have a bobblehead, and Mike Napoli wins it. So where's the panda marketing coming from?
Oh, I don't know.
Big Papi or Pedroia or any of that. Are those guys just old news at this point?
I don't know. But
I know that they like Pedroia obviously for his leadership qualities, and it'd be tough to part with a guy like him. But if you could get something good in return for him, like a legit pitcher, why wouldn't you consider that?
Right. Yeah. I don't think their mindset would ever go
at the end of the day, he's a second baseman.
Right.
He's a second baseman. He doesn't have that much power anymore. He's getting older. He's a good defender.
He's not a 300 hitter.
He's not.
Yeah.
And the other thing that they did is, did they rush Bogarts? They brought him up so young, and they preached to him this offseason. Everything I've heard, defense, defense, defense. He's actually been much better defensively this year.
Yeah.
But he's not hitting.
Yeah.
Doesn't he look slimmer to you? He looks like he trimmed down a lot.
Yeah. I don't think he was ever really a big guy.
I felt like he was bigger last year than he is now, though.
Hanley seems bigger.
He's much bigger. He's much bigger.
It was in the Dodgers.
There's no way he could play there's no way he could play the middle infield at this point.
No. He's not a shortstop anymore. But what's your take on what they called a veterans-only meeting? What is that about? Now, is that you hear John Henry this week, and you hear a bunch of things saying they go, I still believe in this team, because they're getting very close. Where you get
people
to that
trying to save their jobs at this point. I think Farrell's starting to get very nervous. He's got to be feeling the pressure now, even though they gave Farrell that extension as well. Can you be looking at a second last place finish, and you've only been the manager for 3 years?
Right. Despite winning the World
Series.
And
when he was in Toronto for 2 years, he didn't have that much success there either.
Yeah, and think of the talent, especially the bats. Toronto's never really had that knockout pitching, but some of their lineup was murderer's row a couple of years with Farrell there.
It's even better now.
Yeah.
But the thing that's crazy about Farrell is Farrell was a great pitching coach, right? under Francona, and he got the most out of guys like Lester and Lackey and Buchholz and so on and so forth. Where is his pitching expertise at this point?
Yeah,
they have the worst rotation in baseball.
Sure.
And I think that was also part of Sherrington's mindset, saying
this guy can fix him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We'll spend a ton on offense. We'll have a powerful, and
all the shortcomings on pitching, Farrell can fix.
Exactly. And it hasn't happened.
It has not happened.
No.
I mean, to getting back to your point about the the Lester, at least try to get something that is close to that. Maybe a number 2 from somebody else, or
Would you do the Hamels thing?
Boy, I don't know. I think the time has passed. I think the time has passed on that deal.
Would you
still do it?
Still talking about it. Depends on who it is. I wouldn't give up Swihart, and I wouldn't. I think Betts is completely off the table now. Can't believe they even would have considered that in the first place.
Yeah.
But
how about you wouldn't want to part with this guy because he can play anywhere. A guy like a Brock Holt. He's a guy.
Take him. He's not. Doesn't have enough value.
Yeah.
But I would trade a Henry Owens. I'd probably trade the Brian Johnson kid. A couple, maybe other guys that we really haven't heard as much about. But I would not trade a switch hitting catcher who you think has Buster Posey type offensive potential and is competent defensively.
The value on catches, I don't think you can put.
No, and I would not trade a guy like Betts who can play the outfield and potentially the infield. He was an infielder before.
Right. Yeah.
He's got speed. He's got power. He's so young. I think he's going to be your leadoff hitter for a number of years. He's dynamic. I was at the game when he stole 2 bases on one play.
Yeah, that's right. Early in the season.
Yeah.
No, he is. He's an exciting player, and he would be definitely tough to pop.
Think about how good he is in the outfield, and he never played outfield before last year.
Natural.
Yeah.
I guess maybe Victorino.
Similar to Holt.
Yeah. Maybe Victorino would like to go back to the Phillies for a can of Coke. So let's take a look around the Major League Baseball, where there's definitely some surprises. The Astros being one of them, the Twins, the Mets, all surprising teams. But believe it or not, the Red Sox. The graphic's a little screwy. I'm working on some new things here. The Yankees, believe it or not, in first place with just 3 games
this
over 500.
This division is wide open and out there for the taking for any of these
teams. Can you remember the last time the American League? They call it the American League least.
No. I mean, obviously the Yankees have gotten old and they're stuck with a lot of those huge contracts that they still have. CC Sabathia, A-Rod, Teixeira. But I have to say, what a year Teixeira has had so far this year.
Kind of a comeback
out of nowhere.
Now, he had a broken thumb or a wrist issue that he could not.
He had several injuries the last few seasons, but he's got like 15 home runs already, and he's definitely near the top of the league in both home runs and RBI, which is shocking. And A-Rod has been actually good as well. Coming back,
I mean, and then
they just don't have much pitching. Actually, Pineda has pitched really well for them.
He's probably the best.
Yeah, and Tanaka is coming back.
Yeah, it was Andrew
Miller.
Andrew Miller.
Yeah. Another mistake the Red Sox made in the offseason. It was a great trade to move him to Baltimore at the deadline. They got Ed-Rod. Then they could have re-signed him in the offseason. They were talking about it, and he could be your closer right now.
Yeah.
He's been lights out.
Yeah,
Yankees.
Uehara could be your setup guy. Move him in for an inning or so. But anyway, that's what it looks like right now in the East. Over in the Central, we talked about at the top of the show, Kansas City Royals. No fluke. And the Twins, Twins would be in first place if it wasn't for the Red Sox the last 2 days.
Right.
It's still that close in the American League Central. Tigers, they kind of do this every year. They
just treading water.
Yeah, rope-a-dope here a little bit. Yeah. And then
they're still waiting for Verlander to come back too. Which I don't know.
And then they got the Indians still in there. A lot of people kind of had them as their kind of like surprise darling pick. I don't know about that.
We don't get to go back and laugh at our picks this year either.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of a sad thing, but we're building the high definition, which will look better than our picks maybe in some past years. But
and then the Astros coming out of nowhere. Similar to Kansas City, been bad for forever.
Right.
Built up a lot of draft picks and have brought a lot of these guys up more recently. They have a lot of good young talent. George Springer, Jose Altuve. They got some pitching now. This Dallas Kushel kid has come out of nowhere. And he's got to be one of the front runners for the NL Cy Young right now.
Yeah, it lights out so far. And the Astros surprising everybody.
Oh, I'm sorry, the AL Cy Young. I forget that the Astros are in the American League now.
Yeah. And before the season, I would say the Mariners were going to win that division.
How bad has Cano been?
terrible.
Talk about another albatross contract for them.
I mean, total power outage. Yeah. And I know that's a tough stadium to hit in, but he put
Adrian Beltre went through the same thing when he went there for 3 or 4 years.
Kind of went into an abyss.
Yeah.
Big loss for the Texas Rangers. He's going to be out for a
few weeks.
Yeah. Was it broken thumb?
I don't know.
Something
if
like that.
Just
Dislocated thumb. So that's kind of.
Well, they brought up that kid Gallo though, who's supposed to be one of the biggest power prospects in baseball, and hit a home run in his first game last night. Yeah.
So in the Oakland A's, have a lot of problems. We talked about that with Cespedes not in the lineup. They've been on a downward spiral.
Texas Rangers bring back Josh Hamilton.
Yes,
it's a big story.
Beat the Red Sox the other day with a hit.
Another
Farrell blunder.
Pinch hit.
Yeah. So this is probably his third or fourth chance, I think, around baseball.
Yeah.
But with the Angels, started to run into trouble. Some bad habits started, I guess. So back.
You have to wonder, LA best fit for a guy with the problems that he had?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Yeah.
2 years later, back in Texas.
Texas, probably a good move, and maybe healthy, happy Josh Hamilton in Texas. Over in the National League, Nationals not a surprise, I think, in that division. The Mets are a surprise.
Bryce Harper, early front runner for the MVP.
Yeah, Harper. They got the two Zimmermans on that team. Braves.
Black Hole Suns just picked him up.
Yep. Who did?
Black Hole Suns.
That's correct. Fantasy baseball. We talk about the slimy scumbags on the later shows.
I'm going to beat them this week.
We'll have those guys on the show, I think, later this season. So if you're watching Tom Canals and Guru.
Mets, good young rotation. The Braves are actually surprised that they're even at 500 with kind of the pairing of the roster that they did.
Yeah, and they've kind of downsized. There's no familiar faces for the most part.
Away,
they got rid of both the Uptons. Yeah. And then finally over in the NL West, Central. Sorry for this. Cardinals.
Cubbies making some noise.
Yeah, Cubbies. This is a kind of if you talk about hot seats, they bring in some people. Of course, John Lester.
Do you think the Red Sox regret that Adrian Gonzalez trade now when you have Anthony Rizzo just absolutely smashing for people? The Cubs?
Yeah, I don't know. They had to move some of that dead weight. That was a toxic Red Sox team.
No, but I mean before that. They
yeah.
traded Rizzo to the Padres to get Gonzalez initially. He was
yeah.
the headliner of that package.
I guess
you can't predict those things.
It happens. So the Cubs hanging in there. You figure it's going to be the Cardinals.
Brewers are awful. Huh?
Brewers have not done anything lately. They bring in they had a manager change already in Milwaukee.
They did, yeah.
But anyway, that's how it looks in the Central. And I really screwed up. I'm working on these graphics. This is kind of like
Giants.
a new thing. The Giants and Dodgers. And how about the Padres? A complete overhaul in that entire team. The entire outfield is completely different.
Justin Upton's been great for them. Will Myers was great before he got hurt. Matt Kemp's been awful, though.
Kemp has not panned out so far. And they brought over, Norris from Oakland for catching. The pitching has been surprisingly good.
Yep.
Was it Shields?
Yep.
Has looked pretty good for them as well. Cashner.
Tyson Ross.
In the Rockies, Tulowitzki. Going to be one of the first big names maybe on the move.
He's been struggling.
At some point.
Tulo's been struggling. Carlos Gonzalez has been struggling. Corey Dickerson, who's a good young outfielder, has been hurt. Yeah, they're just a mess out there in Colorado. But Giants, what have they won? 3 out of the last 5 World Series. And
yes, they're like a silent champion. So hanging in there with a mishmash of players.
Diamondbacks with Paul Goldschmidt, one of the best players in the National League, just crushing it right now.
Yeah.
Still not good. No pitching.
He's your first baseman, right?
No, I don't have
you haven't last year.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's how it looks around Major League Baseball. A couple of surprises. We mentioned the Astros and the Mets, and the Twins still hanging in there. But hopefully the Red Sox can still hang in there. They got to win their home games. They have a second part of a day-night doubleheader, and then they have another game against the Twins on Thursday. But they'll be opening up a 3-game series with the Oakland A's this weekend, a team that has really disappointed. If we could take a look at this weekend's pitching matchups, Miley's going to get the ball on Friday against Jesse Chavez, who actually had a pretty good outing last.
He's pitched pretty well, since they put him back in the rotation.
He's one of my.
He was good last year too for a while.
He's one of my floater guys. Get him in the pitching staff. Get him out of the pitching staff. Red Sox will. Buckholz will actually get the ball on Sunday against some guy Graveson.
Yeah,
a new name
to the
for
rotation
Oakland. I haven't seen him.
Typical of them.
And then if we can get that, maybe hopefully we can get that graphic up there for the pitching matchups. I'm not sure who the middle pitcher is, but I think it was Kelly. Joe Kelly slated to pitch on Saturday.
I was going to say, are they really going to give him another start?
I don't know. The hourglass is going to be running out on him, I think, pretty soon, because it's not been good.
I wouldn't be surprised if we see Brian Johnson come up, given how well Eduardo Rodriguez has pitched in his first 2 outings. Won both of them. How many runs did he give up today? None? One?
Gave up 1 run, 2 hits.
So 1 run in almost 15 innings.
Yeah. That's good. I mean, those Twins hitters were just guessing. They had no idea. They could not. They did not.
Think Baltimore regrets that trade from last year?
I think so. Especially, it's only 1 year removed. At least the Rizzo thing took a couple of years to come to fruition. So, anyway,
who's your big fantasy sleeper so far?
As far as players,
yeah.
Trying to think.
Who's been killing it for you?
I'm merging my 2 teams here. I have Rizzo in 1 league. I got Joey Bats. I think I'm merging my 2 teams. I haven't really got comfortable with
Josh Donaldson's been incredible in Toronto.
He's in Oakland, kind of wish they had him back, I think.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're just about out of time. I want to thank Dana Matson and up-and-coming director maybe of the show, maybe Danny Lacrosse. So we'll see how that goes. BK, look forward to a long, good season. I hope the long isn't the good. I hope it's just the good season.
Hope they're still in the mix in July.
We'll see how it goes. And if the Red Sox are still in it, then we will be too. So go Red Sox, and hopefully they can get this thing on track. We'll see you next time. I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to tell you about